Today you're going to learn about some of the strangest things that happen in a huge warehouse at the Carrefour supermarket. A place where dozens of people quit because of this issue. And where it's also believed that some very, very horrible things happened on the premises in the past. Today you'll find out about it. For the impatient, I'll note the exact minute when the story starts below. But first I want to welcome you and of course thank all the members who joined in these last few days. Thank you so much. There have been so many of us these past weeks. And also to everyone who is always there, behind the screen, giving likes, leaving comments and watching the videos until the end. Thanks to you, the channel really keeps going and every day we reach a little bit further. And to more people who don't know this kind of content, thank you. I'll also tell you that the channel store will close in just a few days. There are exclusive models and one is sold out or nearly gone, so act fast. There are also promotions. All orders placed now in these last few days before closing will have a 50% discount on shipping to anywhere in Argentina, and if you buy 2 or more items, you'll get free shipping, so it's something to take advantage of. I'll leave the WhatsApp number down here where you can request the catalog whenever you want and with no obligation. Check out all the designs, each one better than the last, so don't miss out and take advantage because they look great. I'll share the number where you can send your audio experiences as well as photos, videos or drawings. Whatever you think completes the story is welcome and important. Then I review all the material, and if your story is selected and I have any questions, I'll write to you and ask you anything I need to know. Friends, that's all just this, and now we begin this new paranormal episode. I hope you enjoy it until the end. This story is real and it's about the things that happened to me while working for a security company located in Capital Federal. As many of you probably know, we're not always in the same place. The assignments change depending on the contracts the company closes, and we move around based on that. That's how in that year, I'm talking about 2009, they sent me to provide security at a huge warehouse of Carrefour supermarket located in Isidro Casanova, La Matanza. But this place wasn't just any site, it had a lot of history behind it. For example, it was once one of the old Bauer factories that produced engines for the famous Rastrojero, and after it closed, the place was only supposedly abandoned because it was used for unfortunate purposes and apparently terrible things happened there. Before I begin, there's something you should know. There isn't a connection between each of the events I'm going to tell you about because they were isolated and separate incidents that surprised us and in many cases terrified us. That's why I'm going to tell you about these experiences, some of which I lived through myself and others that happened to my coworkers in this very place. A place where surely today and for the rest of time paranormal events will continue to manifest themselves perpetually. Will you understand what I mean? The first day I arrived, everything started off strange because right when I was introducing myself, a guy was shouting that he didn't want to work here anymore, that he was quitting. And in fact, I never saw him again, so he probably did quit or they just fired him. I didn't know the reason, at least not at that moment, but over time I started to understand everything. Who could it be? My coworker? He greeted me with a great vibe and a slight smile. He whispered to me that I was getting into a tough place to work. That's all he said and nothing more. What I thought were two things. Either there was a tense relationship with the managers or bosses there, or maybe with the other company. Because one detail I didn't mention is that in certain places, especially when there's merchandise like in this case, they hire two different security companies. One guards the internal perimeter and the other the external. This way, they try to avoid certain collusions that end up reducing the stock without anyone knowing. Hope you understand me. At that time, we were assigned to the inner perimeter, and honestly, everything seemed pretty calm. But there were things around that just didn't have an explanation. I could tell you that the first week was pretty normal. Because although there were some suspicious situations where you heard noises or thought you saw certain shadows where there was no one, since I wasn't used to this place yet, I didn't really give it much importance. But after about a week, talking with one of my fellow guards, I gradually started to learn about the things that happened inside there. And not just at that time, but always. The first thing he told me was that the employee I found yelling when I arrived had quit because he couldn't stand working there anymore. And not because of a bad work environment, but because of all the strange events that ended up overwhelming him. And like him, many others had quit, some giving notice about all this, and others simply stopped showing up for their shifts. But there were many who really had a hard time. And here's something important. Why did some have such a hard time and others not so much? There's a possible answer to this, and you'll find out in just a moment. The property is very large, mainly consisting of 3 warehouses where all the merchandise is stored. And something that caught my attention from the very beginning was that the dogs that were loose around the place didn't want to follow you to certain areas. I first thought they were avoiding those areas because they'd been scolded or kicked out for different reasons. But I later realized that wasn't true. They sense and feel more than we do, and they know exactly when to stay by your side. Something that happened to me many times, and it was hard for me to associate it with an unusual situation. It was that while being in one of the guard posts during the early morning, it was almost normal to get sleepy, and you would take advantage of certain quiet moments to doze off a little. Hearing a tapping sound inside the guard post was strange, like someone was repeatedly hitting it with their palm. And when I woke up, this sound would disappear. But you know what was the most curious thing? This only happened when a supervisor was surprised and came closer to check. Therefore, over time, I took it as something good, as if this presence, who knows what it was, wanted to help me in that way so that I wouldn't get in trouble. Something quite difficult happened to an employee from the other company, with whom, by the way, I got along quite badly. For reasons that aren't relevant, the point is. But on one occasion, he tried to play a dirty trick on me by trying to jam one of the locks. Something really crazy happened that morning. At that moment, I was guarding the warehouse used for fruits and vegetables. This guy from the other company came over, and from what I heard, he tried to stick something in the lock to jam it, but he couldn't. Why? Did he do something? Did someone next to him? It was a faceless shadow without physical details, but had a human shape. It scared him so much that he ran away and never came back. In fact, he quit. But the most amazing thing, and that's exactly how I found out. What happened was that within a few minutes, 3 armed security guards showed up because they were watching the outer perimeter, banging on the warehouse, asking me who I was with. I had no idea why they were asking. Nothing had happened. I hadn't seen anyone, and there hadn't been any noise at all. But then they told me what had happened with the other guy, and they even said that through the cameras they noticed this person, and from what they understood, he had gone into the warehouse. That night, they searched the whole area from end to end, inside and out. Do you know who they found? No one. In fact, that person was not flesh and blood.
Talking with the local people, with the workers, one of them who was a security guard when they had just started, because that place went bankrupt during Menem's time. And then when it reopened, this businessman bought it and rented it to Carrefour for fruits and vegetables. He told me that it was a clandestine detention center. In fact, they told me that when they were doing the excavations for the park around the perimeter, they found human remains of people, and I don't know if those were ever reported. Honestly, I have no idea. And they say it was clear that a lot of people had been killed. That's why I know there were a lot of people. Over time, I noticed everyone with him had a military background. Because in security, it's always those who were former police officers, the military who left. There was a former cara pintada, and he drove all of them crazy. It was impressive. He made them walk in pairs, but even so, they were frightening. They banged on shutters, hit metal sheets, and went to the guardhouse. There was a guardhouse at the bottom of the pit, and he says it was like seeing about 20 guys hanging and swinging the guardhouse all over the place. They would run out and see no one, and they never bothered me. A friend came over and we talked. I told him, look, here's what's happening. I'm not trying to scare you, but since it doesn't bother me, I'm okay. Well, this guy, it seems he was involved in religion, and I don't know what he was doing, but that entity must have scared him so much. Even with his military background, he still ran all the way to me. He nervously knocked on my shutter, and I opened it asking, well, what happened? Did you see? No? And he wanted to talk, but he was stuttering, and I said, But what happened? Tell me what happened to you, man. He didn't tell me that he had seen that a strange, ugly apparition had appeared to him, and it scared him. He wanted to leave the house, so I walked him to the door and asked, tell me what happened. He told me. When I walked him out, it was about 500 meters to the main door. I walked him out, and there, a bit calmer, he started to tell me that apparently he was there. He went to the bathroom, When he leaves the bathroom, he feels like something touches him, you know? And when he turns around, those things he says, like it was as if it was angry, I don't know what, and he ran out. He left everything behind, his walkie-talkie thrown, everything, just like that. We left with the site security, let's say, again, because I had import duties and everything, so we left. We went into the warehouse, checked the whole place, and didn't find anything at all, not even a rat, nothing.
There were many more situations like this, but one in particular was shocking. Even though it didn't happen to me, I felt the horror. That night, everything was going pretty normally with the other person, and suddenly I got a call, him on the radio. It was my partner who was in the other warehouse asking me to please come because something bad was happening. He was desperate. I ran over there just to see, since we weren't armed. There was a distance of about 200 meters more or less. When I arrived, I went into the warehouse, and I found him lying in a corner in the fetal position, crying, scared, and begging me to please get him out of there. I never found out what he saw because that was his last night, but like him, there were many others who encountered really nasty entities that tormented them until they begged for mercy. In those moments, I wondered if this property's supposed past was connected to everything happening, because, I repeat, they never bothered me. In fact, many times I felt accompanied or protected or helped, like I already told you. But anyone who had a military or police background was definitely a candidate to be continuously harassed by these energies. And just to tell you, in the span of a year, more than a dozen people quit because of these things. That says it all.
One time a patrol car came, I was in the back, sitting at my workstation, let's say, and I felt like I was being watched. At that time there were no cell phones, I wasn't reading, and then a patrol car arrived with a woman and two young men. They asked me if they could come in and sleep inside the warehouse. Yes, I told them. As you wish, I said. So they went and parked the truck inside the warehouse. And suddenly a guy came and told me that they had the patrol car parked outside and they were trying to sleep. And suddenly they felt like the patrol car was going up and down, up and down. He says he opens his eyes and looks through the rearview mirror and sees about 4 guys behind the truck jumping. He gets out angry. They weren't there. Well, it was the dream. Well, the guy lies back down, reclines the seat back, and says that again. It was like they were rocking the truck, but it was rocking up and down. He says he got out already with the gun in his hand. He got out angry. No one was there. Nothing at all. They checked around the patrol car and found no one. And then they started up and saw the light from the warehouse and asked if they could go in. I said, that's crazy. This isn't the first story I've heard. He replied, yes. I told him, go ahead, go out there. Many gods quit here. I said, no, nothing seemed odd to me. They didn't bother me and I didn't bother them. I wished them well. I said, no. He replied, no, it's not crazy. I remember the guys who loaded the trucks often told me many stories about the things they found. They'd open the refrigeration units and find someone inside. They called security, but no one was there when they arrived. Cameras showed no one leaving, and there were many similar stories. They won't let him sleep and bang on his truck. There was a guy who told me they wouldn't let him, that he thought it was me, that I was going to bang on the truck. I'm not saying I didn't bang on the truck. He said he once got angry and told me I was about 20 meters from the truck, inside the guardhouse. I thought it was about the property. He left and found him across the street. And well, that's how it was. But like I said, it's something that never bothered me, and I felt really good and very comfortable in that place. I'm not sure why those people always made life so hard for them. Maybe I was just lucky.
Thank you very much, as always, for making it to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to know what you think about it, and if you've ever or why you haven't experienced something similar. I'll say goodbye now. See you in a few days. Sending a big hug to all of you.